In this series, I'm uncovering the history of the ordinary British home. I want to explore the homes that most of us live in and that most of us take for granted. From Tudor cottages and Victorian terraces to post-war flats, I want to reveal how these often ordinary-looking homes are, in fact, extraordinary. In each episode, I'll search out the stories of how and why our homes were built, and I'll explore the evidence of centuries of design and redesign. Since I've got you here and I can explore your plumbing in detail. Our homes offer an intimate portrait of our public and our private selves. From the glass in our windows to the gadgets in our kitchens, they lay bare how healthy, how wealthy, even how happy we are.
She kissed the walls.
We have a lot in common. I'm always kissing architecture too. She loves a terraced house. I'll uncover the architectural details which have shaped our social history and transformed our daily lives. I want to go beyond masonry and mortar and come face to face with residents, past and present. I want to understand how they lived and how they transformed buildings into homes. The story of how the terrace house conquered the country is a classic Victorian tale of far-sighted, public-spirited reform and short-sighted private speculation. It's also a love story of how we met our match in a house that always perfectly expresses key aspects of the national character, the obsession with privacy and the love of snooping on the neighbours. Liverpool is the ultimate Victorian boomtown, turned by trade and industry from a provincial powerhouse into the second city of empire. 100,000 terraced houses were built to accommodate its vast Victorian workforce. Throughout 19th century Britain, the terrace reshaped the landscape of every town and city. And in Liverpool, that transformation was more dramatic than almost anywhere. The terrace became the house that more of us live in than any other. And it proved the most brilliantly adaptable of homes. Terraced, south of Liverpool city centre, was one area changed beyond all recognition by the terrace. From a high of Victorian industry and immigration to a low of post-war decline and decay, Terraced's terraces have seen it all. And it's through the turbulent history of these streets that I want to chart our enduring love affair with the terrace. Cairn Street was built in the 1880s and is typical of Terraced's terraces. Nasra and her daughter Shiloh recently moved in and have fallen in love with their terrace. Well, how do you feel about your terrace house home?
I absolutely adore it. It's open plan, it's contemporary, but it's got the beautiful classic Victorian, exterior.
Yeah. How old are you? What she thinks about living here?
Well, she kissed the walls when we first viewed the property, so that told me everything I needed to know.
She kissed the walls?
She kissed the walls.
We have a lot in common. I'm always kissing architecture too. She loves a terraced house.
Yeah, she can appreciate how wonderful it is as much as I do.
But really, she was excited.
She was excited.
I think she is. It makes a wonderful home, doesn't it?
Yes. The fact that it is a Victorian home, it gives me the feeling that this is permanent, this is solid, this is a home I'll remain in because of the actual fact that it's a Victorian terrace. The new builds do not give me that same feeling.
I imagine you hope you'll be here for some years.
Forever.
Forever, okay.
I plan forever, Dan.
I want to discover what made the terrace Britain's home of choice, and why we're still as devoted to these houses as their first inhabitants were well over a century ago. In the 19th century, Britain's population almost quadrupled as millions left the countryside to seek their fortunes in rapidly industrialising cities, creating a national housing crisis. Liverpool was more densely packed than anywhere else on Earth, thanks both to this rural exodus and to an influx of Irish migrants fleeing the potato famine. With over 130,000 people per square mile, many Liverpool families ended up crammed into single rooms in the town's infamous courthouses. So this is the last example in Liverpool of courthouses.
That's right. It was a type of housing that was so prevalent across the city in the 19th century, and yet the slum clearance programmes, as they became known in the late 19th and early 20th century, were very effective, and a vast number were demolished in that period. So these are just two of the courthouses that would have existed here. There would originally have been 8 houses in this court.
So it would have been longer, darker, more overshadowed.
Yes.
And of course, each house are 3 stories above a basement, so 4 stories in all, and it's essentially 1 room per floor.
Exactly.
So this is your front door, there's your neighbour's front door, that's the space. You're cheek by jowl, aren't you? Really are living in each other's laps.
Absolutely. And then at the end of the courts, it was very common to have the privies and waste pits, which again was shared amongst all the houses in the court. So that could be 10 or 12 houses in some cases. And these are all the things that were being commented upon in the 19th century by the public health officers. Dr. Duncan, the first medical officer of health in the country, writes in detail about the conditions that he finds in the 1840s. He's particularly disturbed by the waste that he finds in the court.
Human waste.
Well, exactly, yeah. He says, I found the whole court inundated with fluid filth, which had oozed through the walls and from 2 adjoining ash pits or cesspools, and which had no means of escape. So quite a disgusting thing to be faced with.
Let's be clear, so that's maybe human waste floating in a little lake of odour here. People, not here, well, maybe here. People have to track, walk through, play and live in. This is such a terrible condition. William Duncan was a general practitioner who saw for himself the terrible effects slum housing had on his patients. He warned of the link between poor housing and epidemics of disease. And in 1846, he was appointed to reform Liverpool's appalling sanitary conditions.
So this is the entrance to the cellar.
Oh, goodness, a rather unconventional place for entrance. There's a pole here. Oh, yeah, in there. And then...
That seems to be it.
Oh.
OK.
Goodness, that's going to be quite a challenge. Parachute jump. OK. Oh, it's good.
OK.
The fireplace still here.
Oh, wow.
The key thing is that tells us this was an inhabited space, this basement room.
Yes, it was, isn't it?
And then there's a smaller cellar beyond there.
Dr. Duncan describes these double-depth cellars and obviously is very concerned about the lack of light and ventilation and the dampness of that back room. He describes a cellar in Preston Street where nearly 30 individuals slept every night in a double cellar.
30 of the more than one family. That's all sort of vagrants.
Must be quite a group of people gathered together, a space just like this. And Duncan's particularly concerned about this because fever of a malignant type broke out amongst the unfortunate beings, which is really hardly surprising.
Cholera was a massive issue here, as it was in other cities in Britain. And there's this wonderful cholera map. I've got a copy here from the library, 1866. Mortality map of cholera. Red dots mark the number of deaths. And we see a rash of red dots over this part of the city.
We're up in this area.
Well, here, there's a dot here, literally just out, marking
on the other side
the
of
street.
the road, Liverpool had a particular problem because of the cellar dwellings. They were unusually common. It was estimated in the 1840s that the average age of death of a working class person in Liverpool was only 19.
19? That is shocking. The Victorian solution to the problem of high-density housing was a host of new rules and regulations, which spelt the end for the old courthouses and set the template for the homes of the future. From the 1840s onwards, the first national housing bylaws were introduced as a solution to the horrors of Britain's slums. The bylaws set out minimum standards to which all new homes were to be built. This is the ground plan of the bylaw house. The front room, the back room, and the rear yard. Now, the bylaws insisted that each habitable room had to have an area of 108 square feet of clear space, which means the frontage could be no less than 12 foot. That gave you an area, of course, for one room of 144 feet, but had to extract the staircase and the chimney breast, therefore ensuring 108 feet of clear space, living space. The back room, here's the back room, similar area. The bylaws insisted that these rooms had to be well ventilated, big windows, so air could be brought into the house. Ventilation was all important, getting rid of the evils of the old slum houses, the courthouses, often with rear dark, dank rooms. Now, through the back door here, into the rear yard. According to the bylaws, the rear yard had to have an area of at least 150 square feet, so slightly bigger than the rooms. Again, for the main reason for that was ventilation. The bylaw house is small, but it brought about a housing revolution. It did away with the evil of the courthouse and brought in a new type of house that took Terraced, Liverpool, indeed the nation, by storm. Old court housing was phased out after the introduction of the bylaws, which specified that the more houses there were around a courtyard, the wider that courtyard had to be. Builders chose to construct houses in terraces instead of around courtyards as soon as it became clear that more houses could be squeezed into a straight line than could be fitted around one of the new wider courtyards. The bylaws made the terrace Britain's new model home, and over the course of the 19th century, a staggering 5 million were built. These were houses of decent proportions, which guaranteed their inhabitants light, space and air, and promised them a far healthier home. But although the terrace became Victorian Britain's favourite home, it was far from a Victorian invention. You can spot examples of terraced housing in medieval towns and cities, but the terrace really came of age towards the end of the 17th century. After the Great Fire of London, brick terraces were the mass-produced homes fit for a modern city. And in the 18th century, the terrace became the epitome of elegance, with uniform classical facades gracing all the most desirable districts. But it was only in the 19th century that terraces were built in such vast numbers they became homes everyone could aspire to. The terrace's boom years arrived when Britain became the world's first industrial superpower. Liverpool's prosperity was founded on its docks, which employed tens of thousands of men. By the second half of the 19th century, the port was one of the world's busiest, with dozens of docks along 7 miles of the Mersey, handling 4 million tons of goods a year. In the 1860s, the Herculaneum dock opened at the southernmost tip of the dock system, on Terraced's waterfront. It handled highly flammable petroleum, which was stored in vast sandstone casemates. The dock proved critical to the development of the area's terraced housing, as the nature of dock work made it essential for workers to live within spitting distance of the waterfront. How tough was it to get a job in the dock?
It could be very tough. At this point in the 1870s, you've got somewhere in the region of 13,000 to 15,000 dock labourers, all competing for work. And the system is a casual system, so as a dock labourer, you have to present yourself every morning between 7 and 8 in the hope of getting work. Right. There's tales of workers literally getting the clothes torn off the backs in order to get to the front and to get catch the eye of the foreman.
A brutal and stressful process, and every day you have to do that. And I suppose, being a big employment opportunity, the dock led automatically, naturally, to the creation of terraces nearby.
You've got this large community of dockers who need to live in this area, and they're not paid huge wages, so they haven't got a lot of money to spend on their housing, so they need fairly low-cost housing. So you have a hinterland of dockers that live locally in these terrace houses so that they could come down every morning, that short way to the waterfront.
Toxteth's development followed a national pattern. Across the country, street after street of bylaw houses were built in the shadow of factories, mines and mills. During the second half of the 19th century, the grassy fields around most of England's towns and cities were covered with rows and rows of terraced houses. What makes the transformation that took place here in Toxteth so remarkable is that the layout of the streets and the design of the houses was largely the work of one man, and that man was Richard Owens. Owens' story is a typical Victorian tale of industry and endeavour. He arrived in Liverpool from North Wales in 1851, aged 20, and worked as a joiner while studying architecture at night school. Within a decade, he was making his name as an enterprising and ambitious property developer. Control of hundreds of acres of Toxteth Park had been acquired by David Roberts, a leading timber merchant who leased the land for development. From the 1860s, Roberts employed Owens to turn this open land into neat little terraces and to extract the maximum value from every available plot. Owens' collection of letterbooks, kept at the Liverpool Record Office, reveal the remarkable scale of the pair's venture.
In this area, the numbers of houses are defined by Richard Owens in a letter dated in 1877.
His letters?
He itemises the estates for which he's been responsible for. So in this area of Toxteth, we have estate number 1, which is 320 houses, estate number 2, which is 300, but estate number 3 is 1,776 houses.
Big enterprise.
So it's a much bigger operation from the Robertses. The 4th estate is the Parliament Fields estate, which is north of Princes Avenue, upon which 1,900 houses were constructed.
Yes.
The combined area of estate 3 and estate 4 in Toxteth Park is somewhere in the region of 140 acres. So it's a huge investment by one developer.
Owens was a canny operator at the heart of a network of landowners, builders, estate agents and banks that underpinned Toxteth's speculative building business. Speculating builders built with no specific client in mind. Instead, they borrowed money to lease plots and finance construction on the expectation that they could sell, or more likely rent, their finished houses for a healthy profit. Owens set the pattern for the houses, providing basic plans whilst leaving their precise detailing to the builders. But he kept a very close eye on construction, and builders whose workmanship fell short of his exacting standards faced his wrath. Do the letterbooks give us a sense of Owens' character?
Yes, there is a letter here, for instance, in correspondence to Mr. Evan Roberts here. He asks whether he's fond of lawyers, because one will be calling on him quite soon.
Clearly, something's gone wrong, and he's basically threatening to set the lawyers on him.
Indeed, that's right. It's called passive-aggressive, I think, is it? I think so.
A man has a lot to do. He's got a city to build.
Well, indeed, yes.
For the labour required to turn his plans into bricks and mortar, Richard Owens relied on an influx of migrants from his native land. Like Owens, these men arrived in Liverpool determined to make their fortunes from its building boom.
By the mid-19th century, several ships a day were making the journey from North Wales, along the coast, up the Mersey, to Liverpool. On board were the men who were going to build the terraces of Toxteth.
The promise of better pay and prospects led Welsh workers to leave their native coal mines and slate quarries. By 1850, entrepreneurial zeal had drawn around 20,000 Welsh builders to Liverpool.
Now, this book, called The Welsh Builders of Merseyside, commemorates some of these humble and generally rather anonymous men.
As we imagine, coming from North Wales, many had the same surname: Evans, Jones, Williams. So their nicknames are all important, that distinguish them. And the nicknames are, to a degree, portraits of the men. Here's some of the names. Porky Williams. Well, of course, you can see him straight away, can't you? Wiggy Roberts. Deaf Tom. Footy Tom. Tom Tom. Windy Bob, say no more. So what's incredible, you know, these names give them identities. You can imagine them, can't you? Also, you can imagine the excitement coming from North Wales, arriving here at this great world city. What an adventure. New arrivals fresh off the boat gravitated to the vast nonconformist chapel on Prince's Road in Toxteth. In its heyday, it had the largest congregation of any Welsh chapel in the world and held the key to success for Liverpool's Welsh builders. Although now terrifyingly derelict, there are plans to repair it.
Well, Ben, I must say the scale of the building and its architectural sort of quality does say an awful lot, doesn't it, about the ambitions and indeed the achievements of the Welsh community here in the, in the 1860s.
Yes. Well, they wanted somewhere that was even bigger than anybody else had, more than the Irish, more than the Scots, more than the English. Yeah. So this is what they built, what they call the Welsh Cathedral. Yeah. When I first came here in 1968, which was very impressive, and we kept it till 1975.
Right.
And I preached the last sermon here.
You did?
I did.
In 75?
1975.
So when you preached here, there were benches or chairs, pulpit over there.
Every window was stained glass.
Yeah, yeah.
And a beautiful pulpit, beautiful, what they call a big seat.
Yes.
For the elders.
But this was more than simply a church, wasn't it, for the Welsh community?
This is where a lot of what they call the elders, big builders of Liverpool, were. So young men who came from Wales, and the only thing they needed to find work in Liverpool was to get what they call a membership ticket from their own local chapel. They would hand it over on a Sunday morning to the presiding elder and say, "We've come to find work." And one of them say, "Yes, can you start tomorrow?"
It's a bit of a closed shop then. You couldn't get into the building trades, really, unless you came through this building.
That's
and
right.
And were approved by its elders.
Yes. If they were in dire straits, they couldn't find enough workers, they would sometimes go and find some Irish labourers. Yeah. But that was not often. If they could find Welsh people, Welsh-speaking people, and chapel-going people, that was the first priority. It was a self-contained community, kind of a Welsh mafia in a way.
Although Owens' terraces were built in Liverpool, they owed far more to North Wales than they did to Merseyside. Their builders exploited the Welsh connection to source many of their raw materials from their homeland. For centuries, Welsh slate had been used to roof Welsh houses. But it wasn't until the 19th century that slate became the main roofing material of the industrial age. Wales produced 4/5 of Britain's slate, and Dinorwig was the second largest of the Welsh quarries.
Now that's lovely, isn't it? A lovely object.
Would you like to try it?
Better try it, just to see how skillful it is by revealing what a mess one can make of it.
I'm sure you'll get it. You'll be okay with this.
Oh, that's pressure, even more pressure. Okay.
Here you go.
The sizes of roofing slates were standardised, and each was given a female title. Whilst the mighty Empress boasted impressive vital statistics of 26 by 16 inches, the narrow lady was a very slight 14 by 7 inches.
There's your mallet.
Mallet,
There's your chisel.
Sharpened chisel. This lady has to be forgiving and open up. Not too firm.
Not too
But
firm.
equally, it can't be too tentative. It's got to show who's master. Now this is the key moment, the
That's
moment
it.
of truth.
Perfect. And again. Okay, you see, she's opened up there.
She has opened up for
You
me.
want to go up there? Do the same
She's
again.
forgiving.
Half an inch. Keep going.
Certainly interesting sounds are coming out of this
Yes.
slate. Not sure they sound altogether good.
Push it up. There you go.
My God. Right, she parted for me. Look at that. With relative. Oh, that's lovely. I mean, how many slates would a chap do a day?
Maybe about 800 a day.
Up to 800 a day.
That's right, yes.
With the right material.
That's right.
A good quality slate.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful, but also entirely practical. It will endure for eternity, really. A wonderful material.
For centuries, the cost of getting slate from quarry to building site ensured that it remained either an expensive luxury or an exclusively local product.
In the late 18th century, it was more expensive to transport Dinorwig slate than it was to produce it. Incredibly, transporting it at 7 miles from the quarry to the port by road in carts was more expensive than transporting it from the port to Liverpool.
In 1848, steam power was introduced onto the Dinorwig line, and by the end of the century was carrying 100,000 tons of slate a year.
Better transport revolutionised the slate industry, turning it from local to national, even international importance. And for Liverpool speculating builders, it meant that Welsh slate was cheap enough to use as their material of choice for roofing their terraces.
Along with slate, the railway revolution made another homegrown material affordable for Toxteth builders. This was sourced from the aptly named Red Works at Rwabon near Wrexham in North Wales.
This is a lump of Etruria marl clay. Fine stuff, look at it. A deep red in colour. Now, when this clay was found around here in huge quantities in the mid-19th century, it made the area's name. Indeed, it made the area's fortune. And the clay was extracted and then put on a conveyor. Well, you can see it here. There is the conveyor belt still surviving, going up into the factory to be milled, to be produced, to be made into thousands and thousands of wonderful bricks.
The speed and scale of 19th century house building turned brick production from a largely local industry, with individual builders often manufacturing their own bricks, into a vast industrial process. Rwabon's brickworks were so productive and so famous that the town became known as Terracottaopolis.
This yellow one is made in Liverpool, Liverpool common brick. There we are. Cheaper product, and looks it, doesn't it really, in a way? Rather sort of anemic. But this wonderful thing is a Rwabon red brick, made, of course, here in North Wales. These bricks were much favoured in the late 19th century, used for some major buildings. The law courts in Birmingham, for example, and indeed Liverpool's university, made out of Ruaban red brick, and that gave its name, really, to red brick university. It's incredible. Now, this brick would be about twice the price of a Liverpool common brick, but even so, the Welsh builders of Toxteth did find the money to buy them. They gave that little touch of class, so essential in speculative buildings, to really kind of attract the client. This brick made the houses really look the business.
Owens' terraces had to turn a decent profit for their Welsh builders, so every decorative flourish was carefully calculated to catch the eye of prospective tenants. These terraces were homes of two halves. One half, with its attractive facade and its perfectly presentable front room, was designed to be a show home, whilst the other half was a real home. At the back of the terrace, the kitchen, the scullery, and the rear yard were devoted to daily life and domestic chores. This layout had an instant and abiding appeal, combining a new sense of privacy with a new pride in the home. For their first residents, these terraces were a significant step up in living standards. Carroll's home in Cairn Street retains many of its original features and offers a fascinating insight into late Victorian life here.
The front doors of these terraced houses were reserved for use by official visitors or by strangers like me. Family and friends would enter through the back door, reached by an alley at the rear of the house. Now, you can see this house has been rendered with its pebble dash, but the original brickwork is visible up there. Rather lovely red bricks. The ground floor front room. The parlour. Lovely. A very good cornice. It's all surprisingly refined. And a fireplace. Of course, it's made of Welsh slate, now painted, but certainly slate. And the bay window, a big ornament on the street. Also, an incentive to keep the room very nice because the neighbours could see in, so this is where your best furniture would be. This was the best room of the house, where you would receive your honoured guests or a great occasion would take place here. Otherwise, the door would be kept firmly closed and all would be therefore pristine. So, Carol, how long have you lived here?
40 years now.
So what was life like in this house when you moved in?
Hasn't changed all that much because I haven't had a lot done to it.
Yeah.
But we only had one tap.
One tap? Only
yes,
one tap.
I'll show you. I'll show it to you.
OK.
Yes, it's
what would have been the scullery, the ground floor rear room.
And right here was where the tap was. And then there was a sink here, coming out of the wall there. And it was only shallow then.
Right.
And that was it.
That was the only tap in the house?
Yes. Cold water.
Cold water, one tap. This plan I'm holding, is of houses in this area. This plan was drawn up in the 1890s. And you can see here, look, here's a house like yours, same sort of arrangement. There's this particular house here, the scullery has the sink and tap on this wall.
Yes.
This little blue lines show the water supply, so you see water coming in from the alley, the passage at the back, pipe.
Right to the corner. That's right, it was right in the corner.
And then into the water closet to fill the cistern. Now, what's interesting to me, since I've got you here and I can explore your plumbing in detail, you're captive, is upstairs.
Yes.
Because this house has, above us, above the scullery, is another bedroom.
Yes.
But the bathroom shown in this house.
No, there wasn't a bathroom.
That's amazing. So you lived in the house, much as it had been lived in the 1880s when the house was new.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, your sort of wonderful people living history or your memories and experience. Now, I'd love to see what happens upstairs.
So in the first floor room above the scullery, and it's now the bathroom. But when did the bath arrive?
1975.
So what did you do before? When you obviously had some years you didn't have a bath. How did you wash?
We used to go up to Lodge Lane, and they had a swimming bath. So attached to that was a wash house, they called it, where you used to do washing. And then next to that was the bathhouse. And there were little cubicles with baths in, and that's where you went.
How many times a week would people tend to go?
About 4 times we used to go. I think it would only be 2 pence.
2 pence?
Nowadays.
Right. And you got a towel?
You got a towel. I think you got a little block of soap. Yeah. And you could have as much hot water as you liked, and it was really fantastic.
Carol's Victorian forebears would also have been regulars at the bathhouse, which was a great Liverpool institution. The country's first publicly funded bath and wash house opened on Frederick Street in 1842. It boasted 10 baths, open to men in the mornings and evenings and to women in the afternoon. And it proved so popular that by the end of the century there were 12 bathhouses in the city. Another great leap forward for public health came with better plumbing. In Liverpool's old courthouses, a single water pump at the centre of the court was shared by around 100 inhabitants. But in Owens' new terraces, every household enjoyed a water supply of its own. The Toxteth Reservoir was opened by Liverpool's Town Council in 1853. It would bring the plumbing revolution to thousands of the area's residents. This is sensational, isn't it? A great columned hall, like the mosque at Cordoba. Amazing. And of course, to be absolutely clear, this is where the water was. It's now empty. The water was here, wasn't it?
The water was here. This reservoir would have held 2 million gallons, or roughly about 10 million litres of water. 10 million litres? Yes. Good Lord.
Here's a big stone granite trough coming down diagonally with a wonderful lip at the end. So it sort of demonstrates what it does. The water comes through here, and it gushes down into the reservoir.
Absolutely. And it would have come by gravity down to...
OK, no pumping involved.
No pumping whatsoever.
Yes,
no pumping.
I can see some other sort of technology over there. It looks like a bullcock, the biggest bullcock I've ever seen. So what's it about?
Very simply, this is no different than the bullcock on your toilet system.
OK.
Except it's a lot bigger.
Right.
And so, as the water rises up, the bullcock closes the valve at the top and stops the water coming in. As the water level drops, it opens again.
Right. Fascinating. Show me how the water got from here to the terrace houses of Toxteth. Oh. This dark and secret area holds the answer.
And these are the outlet valves here.
These supplied the mains in the street?
They did indeed.
Well, how did it change people's lives?
Oh, tremendously. If you've been living in a courthouse, you had to queue up for your water, quite often at an unsociable hour, and then suddenly you've got your water on tap.
Thanks to this wonderful, wonderful palace of water.
Yes, indeed.
And piped water delivered to your door also made possible one of the most groundbreaking of all Victorian home improvements. Everything that was smelly, dirty or unsightly happened here. This is where you'd beat your carpet, store the rubbish for collection, or hang up the washing, including the mangled corset away from the gaze. Rather embarrassing to be seen by the neighbours, I suppose. But the most important backyard business of all happened over here, the outside water closet. Now, this structure is not the original, clearly it's concrete block, but this is where the lavatory would have been, and inside the wonder of the age. Now, imagine this, you know, in the 1880s, to have in your home a private water-flushed lavatory, a water closet. Before that, lavatories were no more than simply holes in the ground, really, empty into a cesspit, had to be cleared on a regular basis by night soilmen. But now this house had this wonderful thing. So all bodily waste could be removed from the premises by a mere tug on the chain. At the Great Exhibition of 1851, a very relieved public took advantage of George Jennings's flashing water closets, one of the earliest examples on the market. Luxurious lavatories were beyond the means of most Toxteth residents. But Liverpool was ahead of the rest of the country in ensuring that by the 1890s every house did at least boast a basic model.
The other fantastic thing about this arrangement is that, unlike in the courts, where whole families would queue to use the same privy, this was a loo of one's own. It marked another significant step from traditional communal life to the more discreet and private way of living. Excuse me.
A Victorian housewife's home was her pride and joy, and the humbler the home, the more house-proud the housewife. The secret weapon of working-class wives in the north of England was donkey stone, a scouring block made of powdered stone and bleach, which promised a front step to put the neighbours to shame. Donkey stoning the front step remained standard practice until the middle of the 20th century.
So you've got to introduce me to the great ritual of donkey stoning the front steps of the terraced house.
Mm-hmm.
And of course over there you've got some donkey stone.
I have different colours.
Oh.
Dark, light and cream.
OK, so here we have the darkish, well, the darkish one, sort of light brown. Why is it called donkey stone?
The first large company had a picture of a donkey on the stone. So
I see.
Known as donkey stone.
So here's a fragment of precious donkey stone, so I can apply this to the stone steps. So I have the authentic experience of the Toxteth housewife in the 1890s, transforming her terraced house into the home and beautiful. So how do I begin?
Get your hand brush.
OK,
and clean the dirt out of it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
OK. Let's OK, if the job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. Let's get down to this.
Yeah.
So 10 minutes later, I'll still be doing this, won't I? And I say, as a girl, this is what you did.
I did. About a 12-year-old, that was my pocket money of a Saturday morning. I used to go and do it for an elderly lady. And I would do her front and the backyard and the toilet. It would also be a pretty much of a social event, people stoning the steps. People would be outside and they'd be saying good morning, how are you today?
Yes. I imagine there was quite a lot of competition amongst the Toxteth housewives, all in rows, donkey stoning their front steps. Who would get the best one?
People would notice if you hadn't done yours, and it would be something of a gossip, you know, amongst the neighbours. Oh, Mrs. So-and-so hasn't done hers, or doesn't it look a mess?
OK, but I'm going to find out.
Now you're going to apply
I'm really exhausted, by the way.
You're going to apply the stone.
OK. Oh, my goodness.
Don't need to press on too hard.
Not too hard, OK. OK.
Yeah, just carry on doing it, going right across. Carry on, just gently.
Oh, it is skillful work, and also it's hard work. It is hard work. I'm on hands, of course, completely wrecked. I mean, I'm not very proud of this, I'm afraid. It looks a bit streaky to me. What do you think?
I think you've done a job well done there, yes.
I've wrecked their hands, wrecked their knees, broken their backs, but so what? The net result was a lovely home.
By the end of the 19th century, Richard Owens hadn't just developed thousands of homes in Toxteth, he'd also dramatically shaped the area's social hierarchy. Owens created homes fit for Victorians from almost every walk of life. For working-class dockers, there were 2 up, 2 downs near the waterfront. Whilst at the other end of Toxteth, positively palatial terraces were designed for well-to-do merchants.
I've got a transcript of the 1891 census for Cairn Street, and this should give me some sense of the community that occupied these terrace houses when they were relatively new. Now let's start with this house here, number 28. One head of the family here, Hugh Ellis.
He's 39. He's a tobacco warehouse labourer. So interesting, he's working in the docks. And he was born in Wales, a Welsh-born Liverpudlian dock labourer. His wife, Elizabeth, they had 2 sons and a daughter, and they have a lodger. A bit of money is being made by renting out a room. Joseph Parry, a merchant's clerk, so probably also working in the docks nearby. So as I say, 6 rooms, 6 people. Now let's look at another house. Now this house, 31 German Street, is absolutely amazing. It retains virtually all its original decorative details, little pedimented porches, lovely flights of steps up to the elevated ground floor. Well, let's see who was living here in 1891. The head of the household was Edward Meyer, and he was, the vice consul for Germany. So this was the home of the main German diplomat in Liverpool in the 1890s. Now, let's see, his wife, Emma, and he has 2 children, Marguerite and Lionel, and they had a servant, Margaret Purse. So there we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in this house of 10 to 12 rooms.
In an age obsessed with the subtlest distinctions of class, Owens's terraces also reinforced a reassuring social divide.
These 2 streets represent something rather fascinating about late 19th century Toxteth. They are physically so near, yet socially worlds apart.
By his death in 1891, Richard Owens had grown rich on the back of his terraces and had founded one of Liverpool's leading architectural practices, which survived for over a century. Owens had at least 10,000 of the city's homes to his name, and he was so successful that he may well have been responsible for more terraced houses in Victorian Britain than anyone else. When they were built, Britain's 19th century terraces were a vision of a new world, promising the highest living standards possible for working-class Victorians. But by the middle of the 20th century, the fate of millions of these homes was in doubt. Many had been destroyed or damaged by wartime bombing, and many more fell victim to neglect.
Drive round any of our old industrial towns. Sooner or later, mostly sooner, you'll come to this, the grey acres, street after street of incredible monotony.
As British industry began a slow but sure decline, millions of the terrace's tenants lost their livelihoods. In the early 1950s, manufacturing employed 40% of the workforce. But as that figure fell to less than 10% today, the country's industrial heartlands became urban wastelands. Liverpool was one of the places hardest hit by the decay of the post-war years. A dramatic decline in trade coming through the port set the city on a devastating downward spiral. As work disappeared, Liverpool's population deserted it. In the 1970s, around 10,000 people a year left the city. In Toxteth, many better-off residents, including many of those originated from Wales, moved out to the suburbs, making way for some of Liverpool's poorer citizens. From the 1950s, the area had become the heart of the city's black community. But rogue landlords also moved in, buying up empty properties and turning decent family homes into ones no better than the courthouses they had replaced. As chronic unemployment took hold, a desirable 19th century neighbourhood became one of Britain's worst slums. In the late 1960s and early 70s, Nick Hedges recorded Toxteth's decline in photographs taken for the housing charity Shelter. When they were newly built, Richard Owens proudly described Jermyn Street's houses as desirable properties in a first-class street. But when Nick photographed them some 80 years on, he found that they were anything but.
This first one is a picture of a woman cooking on an open fire with a saucepan of potatoes ready to starch. Her gas and electricity had been cut off, so she was living in very reduced circumstances.
The scene is like a scene from an illustration of a 19th century slum. I'm basically cooking over the open coals in a frying pan in one's living room.
I know.
It's an amazing scene.
This picture, which I think I'm very fond of, this was a particularly tragic story. This guy worked for the Liverpool Council.
Yeah.
But the house that they were living in in one room, as you can see. There's a double bed over here.
Yeah.
But the house had no running water. That's why there are a proliferation of buckets around, because whenever they wanted any water, they had to cross the street to a neighbour to collect water.
And you know,
and this was a family of a mother, father, and 2 children.
Where the children slept? One double bed for them.
They all slept together.
All slept in that bed.
Yeah.
In the basements of some houses, Nick discovered conditions eerily similar to the city's notorious 19th century cellar dwellings.
I was brought in by Mrs. Ditchfield, who appears in this photograph, and she descended the cellar stairs. I thought she was going to show me something to do with damp, but in actual fact, she was showing me her living accommodation.
A living accommodation.
Yeah, I know, which was extraordinary. I mean, a cellar which had no natural lighting, was incredibly damp, as you can see from the walls, and she lived with her daughter, teenage daughter, in this room. Extraordinary.
I say this is profoundly shocking.
It is.
This is the 1960s. It looks like an image from a slum of the 1860s. There were still people living basically in subterranean, like troglodytes, in a damp hole in the ground. I mean...
Yeah, but looking at the picture now, it reminds me of photographs that you see these days, and you associate it with people who are taking shelter in war zones. But these people weren't taking shelter. This was the only room they could find to live in.
5 million people living in slum housing were not just deprived of light, air, and the most basic amenities. Poverty also denied them any sense of pride in their homes. The disaster that befell so many of Britain's terraces was the fault not of the houses themselves, but of their inhabitants' circumstances. Yet successive post-war governments saw the terrace as the cause of the problem, one which could only be solved by knocking down millions of homes. Liverpool Council's approach was particularly radical. In 1966, it proposed a demolition of almost 3/4 of inner-city Victorian houses. In Toxteth, many of the streets laid out by Richard Owens were razed to the ground. But sweeping away the terraces could not erase deeper problems of poverty, crime and racism. In 1981, Liverpool reached its lowest ebb when Toxteth was the scene of some of the worst rioting the country had ever seen.
Stones and lumps of iron were thrown, worst of all the petrol bombs.
Listen to the music, hear about a place people call the shady side of town.
The despair of 30 years of decline and deprivation were unleashed as Toxteth's residents turned on their own streets.
By dawn, the full extent of the damage had become clear. One of Toxteth's busiest shopping streets resembled a wartime scene. Dozens of shops had been looted, burned, and then totally destroyed.
The area around Granby Street saw some of the worst of the violence, and for 35 years after the riots was left mostly desolate and decaying. Now it's being regenerated. Although just 4 of the streets that Richard Owens developed in this part of Toxteth survive, their reinvention is proof that there's plenty of life left in the terraced house.
For me, growing up in the terraced streets, I think it's that kind of sense of security, and there was also kind of, you know, you probably knew everybody within the streets.
I mean, it's great because there's another language. This is an area of languages. And the one which has been going probably since the Victorian times is the language of knock on the wall. It's like bang bang, if you got any sugar, whatever. It's out in the corner, but you know, if you can, or it's like bang bang, turn the music down, whatever it is.
Remarkably, the refurbishment of 10 derelict houses in neighbouring Cairn Street has even won Assemble Architects the 2015 Turner Prize. By reintroducing human craft to these houses and by readapting the terrace's form, Assemble have been the salvation of these houses. One of the Assemble houses, which had been reduced to little more than a shell, is now Nazra's home.
Definitely admire the architects that they've done things that are both practical, durable and aesthetically beautiful. When I have people around, family and friends, everybody can just enjoy and breathe. There's not these 2 separate rooms which are now out of date.
And that, of course, absolutely the point in the plan was appropriate 100 or so years ago when people wanted, you know, a sitting room, a separate dining room in little compartments. Now, of course, people favour light and space in there and the open plan. Well, I say what's fantastic, you can see how easily a terrace house like this can accommodate that.
Yeah, it's got substance to it.
Yeah. This is lovely, isn't it? This big, curvaceous newel post. This is obviously original.
Isn't it?
So some details have been kept and reused.
Yeah, I love this.
So it's obviously 2 bedrooms, front one, big one, smaller one behind.
Yeah, it's a beautiful big bedroom.
This is your room and your daughter at some point. She'll move next door.
She's got her lovely double bedroom. She'll be able to grow into it. Straight away, we're going to paint it, you know, the baby pink. And I'm going to put even a little baby chandelier in there, pink.
And also, you get the sense of she's part of a safe community, because each house is a private world created to suit the people who live in it, with their own front door. But the moment you go through the front door into the public world, well, that's also the communal world. You know the neighbours, you know the people opposite, the people next door.
It is nice to open my door and be able to speak to my neighbours, because many properties I've had no relationship with my neighbours at all. In my last property that I was at, I barely knew the neighbours. Now this property, it's hello, you know, numerous times throughout the day, and it's nice.
The rebirth of houses like Nazra's has restored faith in the terrace's future. 300 of Richard Owens' Toxteth houses had been scheduled for demolition for over a decade. These were some of the nation's most neglected terraces. But within a week of the Turner Prize announcement, Liverpool City Council performed a remarkable U-turn. Bowing to pressure from campaigners and central government, it finally declared that these terraces would be spared the wrecking ball. Once remodelled, repaired and repopulated, these houses will stand as proof of both the terrace and Toxteth's extraordinary transformation. Next time, I'm exploring the high-rise flat, the home designed to do away with a decaying terrace. I'll see how multi-storey living was made possible, and I'll discover why this was a home loved and loathed in equal measure.
And At Home with the British concludes Thursday at 9 here on BBC4. Tonight, new technologies bring weather predicting into the 20th century, with the stormtroopers and the fight to forecast the weather next. Then the bank holiday movie stars Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio in Steven Spielberg's Catch Me If You Can at 10.